All right, welcome to On the Road Again with NTS. My name is Jolie Richards, and this series is about highlighting recent events NTS has participated in to keep you updated with what we're up to and really give insight to those who might have not been at an event we attended, and ultimately give you a breakdown of all the details of what our participation means at these events we're attending, and kind of just share where our team is on the road. So today we're going to talk about the Aberdeen Proving Ground Fall Tech Expo, which we participated in last week. And I'm joined by my team members who went, David Laughinghouse and Josh Morgan, to discuss all the ins and outs of the show. And David and Josh, if each of you guys could introduce yourselves and, kind of share what you do for NTS, and then we'll deep dive into what happened at the event.
I'll go first, Josh, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm David Laughinghouse. I'm the Federal Sales Director for the Tactical Army. So along with some other folks on the team, we support most of the customers, if not all the customers at Aberdeen Proving Ground, to include POC3T, PO, IEWNS, ATC, DevCom. So it's pretty much our main focus within NTS.
Awesome. Josh?
Good afternoon or morning or wherever time it is, wherever you're at. Josh Morgan, I'm the Director of Integrated Solutions. Really long title for just basically saying I'm kind of our lead nerd here in the house. Looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. We love our nerds. All right. Thanks, guys. Okay. So kind of diving into the event, we've attended APG numerous times in the past. I was going to say this might be like our 5th year in a row doing it. So
yeah.
It's one of our core events, and it's definitely a great event to, really interact with key personnel from organizations and really commands all over the Army installation where, we can really hold those networking opportunities and strengthen, particular relationships and kind of just have that open line of communication and education for problem solving as a whole. So if you guys can kind of share, what you were each most excited about going into the event and what your intentions were, I think people would love to hear that.
Yeah, I think it's our 4th or 5th year participating in the event. There's a spring event as well and a fall. So obviously this one's the first, I think, main fall expo since, COVID kind of took over the world. So it was exciting for us to get back in front of the customers, not, just for an event purpose, but, to get back in person at APG, see the different customers that we have there, along with meet some new folks, because there's a lot of turnover at APG year over year within the program. So meet new folks, and also gives us an opportunity to, kind of meet with some of our other partners, our vendors, other folks that we work with within the APD or APG stratosphere, or atmosphere, whatever you want to call it.
And Josh, what about you? What were you most excited about? What were your intentions for going into the event?
So for me, it was just, we've had a few technologies that we've been working with, or partner companies that we've been working with, or even just some, homegrown technologies that I've been looking forward to just showing people. I feel like, finally getting back out on the road, and, as an engineer, right, that's what I get most excited about, is saying, hey, check out this thing. Or this widget, but then mostly because, being a prior service member, having all these issues and problems that I had before with, trying to get things up and running or provide support to the mission, we're always looking for the answer of, how can I fix this? How can I make this better? How can I make it easier for, the people that are doing what I used to? And just so anytime I have something that I'm looking forward to showing them and saying, hey, check this out, right? Remember when you used to have to do all these things and it was really hard? And now I can make that easy for you, or I can make that problem, less likely to happen, or give you better comms or whatever. So for me, I'm just excited anytime I get to show off, the new solution that we have in house.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you guys both brought up COVID and, now being excited to have a showcase and show people what we had planned going into the event, especially as we evaluated the problem area sets presented at the show. So I do want to dive a bit into our showcase and, how we approached that going into the event. And I know beforehand when we were really preparing, there were discussions of what we wanted to address in support of the Army's modernization strategy, especially as it relates to advancing tactical networks to counter emerging threats enable new forms of maneuver, maintain integration, and have secure communication with command and control and other units within the increasingly communications reliant battlefront landscape, as they're critical to ensure the success of the mission. So, in relation to those requirements, can you guys break down the showcase a bit and touch on how our showcase is supporting those efforts?
Josh, I'll let you kind of go into all the different technologies we showcase, but I think the biggest thing for me was to continue the effort we have around automation and Mantle, right? So we've, for the last, year and a half, 2 years, we've really been pushing forward and developing an internal solution, software now also into the hardware realm, for Mantle and helping folks automate their different workloads, right? Whether it's a tactical flyaway kit, whether it's a network kit, whether it's an ATAC, whether it's a handheld, all these different devices, we've seen a need not only to automate those solutions, to make them faster, to get the units out there, and also to help alleviate some of the mistakes that some of the users are making in theater or at the edge or even back in garrison. So I think that was the main focus for me, at least. I know Josh had some other some technology there as well that we were trying to showcase, but the main thing was kind of keep pushing the narrative on why automation. Why should you automate? Who is automating currently, and who is kind of adopting the platform that we're kind of pushing? So that was the main focus for me, and I think we just have to continue to strive to get the message out there. And this is just one perfect event, among many that we can kind of keep that going.
That's great. And Josh, what about you? Can you elaborate a bit from the engineering side from what David said and share any key details from the demos held?
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, first and foremost for us is the automation piece. So when we talk about Mantle, but I really like to just kind of broaden it out as like the automation journey, right? You'll see it on some of our logos and our shirts and stuff like that. And, it sounds cool, but it's actually like a legitimate way to think about, automating processes or automating, backend infrastructure. And so it's just really kind of complex, but it doesn't have to be, pyramid of how important automation will be in the future. So I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and we talked about tech deficit, right? So having places that there's so many technologies out there, how do we learn about them? How do we get the time to do all these things that we're supposed to be doing? And one of the things I think that'll help people with that is automating processes, right? Automating building out of kits so that you can attempt to do your best to overcome this tech deficit that seems to be, kind of forthcoming. So with Mantle, not only is it the ability to start training immediately, right? Building a package. So, we had our kind of homegrown Mantle appliance. It just gives you the ability to build a communications package, right? And I'll use that as a very generic term because it's intended to be that way. So, you pick the package, and then let Mantle help build it for you the right way, the same way every time. Second part of that is talking with some of my folks that are some of my friends and peers that are in the cybersecurity arena. They do these scans on the network and they're constantly like, "Oh, I found this vulnerability," or "I found this thing." Well, why'd you find that? Well, because a person built this switch based off the same set of instructions that somebody else got, but they built it differently. They both worked. One of them had a vulnerability and a scan, and one of them didn't. Right. So from the cybersecurity standpoint, most of the folks I've talked to will tell you that automation is going to be key in making sure that we reduce the amount of cybersecurity vulnerabilities we have in our infrastructure in the future. So that was kind of the automation piece. We just had Mantle there with an appliance that's specifically to build there to build communication packages. And then one of the other things I like to focus on is like making sure that if you own something or if you bought something that you get the best use out of it, right? So there are a lot of people in Army and all the other DoD components that have steelheads from Riverbed. And so one of the new technologies they have is this SSL acceleration client. And it's a feature that is now included in, upgraded by software. So it's not like you have to go out and buy a new thing. It's something that a lot of cases people already own. And getting to a point where you can start accelerating SSL traffic without having to have private keys. Going back to my days when I was in service, that's a huge deal, right? That means I can just basically pick whichever SSL traffic is going across my WAN link and say, yeah, that's the traffic that I think is critical or important. And I want to not only optimize it, but I want to be able to do more with less. So you have X amount of bandwidth, and I got to figure out how to do all these things with X amount of bandwidth. And that SSL acceleration is absolutely critical in kind of getting there, right? It's not going to be the fix all of everything, but it definitely helps. And I've said people already own it, right? So I want to get things off the shelf and back in production that they already own. And then the last kind of piece of our demos there was a troubleshooting tool, piece of software that we put on an appliance called Ruck from Viterra. So it's a really wonderful, and I won't go into all the details here, but it's a really wonderful video troubleshooting tool. So as we kind of continue down, advancing how the military does business, video has been a significant, important part of how operations are done. But video isn't always simple, and so sometimes troubleshooting video can be complicated, especially if you're dealing with multicast traffic or trying to figure out how to get multicast traffic across LTE networks or other things like that. And it really helps with the finger pointing game. So, in the engineering world, it's, hey, as long as I'm good, right? It's not me, it's you, not my problem. And so, having this Ruck from Viterra really helps you kind of move down the line quickly and do some, simple, efficient troubleshooting for what used to be a complicated process. And say, let's solve the video problem that we're having for ISR, or even if it's just public like IPTV services that we're running in a bunch of different areas, and getting to resolution quicker. So that was kind of what we had showcased there, and I think it went well.
Yeah, you made a great point there, Josh, with getting to resolution quicker and kind of going hand in hand with that as the battlefield is evolving and, missions require units to be mobile and support a multitude of capabilities. I know something we discussed beforehand and that you guys brought up in relation to that is really leveraging the cloud to effectively process data at the edge. So, David, can you go into why that's important, how we're doing that and the role that plays as a whole to these requirements? And then Josh, again, any insight from the engineering side would be great.
For us, it's, when we talk to the customer, whether that's, the end Army unit, whether that's, one of the divisions or the programs themselves, they always have this utopian idea of, hey, let's get the data out, or let's get these kits built. We're just going to hand you a kit and you run this script. You load it on the box runs, has all your applications, et cetera, right? I mean, it goes into more detail, but when you get down to the end user and the actual boots on the ground, that's not always the case, right? It's not always that easy to pull data from the cloud or access some of these sites that the programs have access to. So the programs are doing one thing, they issue it down to the unit has the box, they have to try to utilize the box without some of the knowledge that the programs have. So there's a little disconnect there, and I think what we're trying to do is to be the conduit, right? We want to help the unit get that kit up and running as fast as possible. We want to get that kit up and running so they can not only complete their mission but train for the mission. I think sometimes it gets lost with the commanders and some of their folks is, hey, we want this thing running, okay, but when you get out to the field, that's time to train. And there's so many different aspects to utilize, Mantle and the automation piece that we have, and that's just one tiny nugget that they can take, right? We want to have that infrastructure as code. We want that known source of truth, so that way, hey, if it breaks in the field, you don't have to worry about spinning up the cycles to rebuild it or reaching back in a disconnected environment. You have everything right there at your fingertips. So, it's trying to leverage those technologies, but also bridge the gap between the units and the programs themselves.
Sure. So we've been talking like, cloud to edge, and, we just kind of used to kind of have a little thing about, bringing the cloud with you, right? So that's what I used to tell people, like when I was carrying kits through the airport, right? Somebody go like, well, what is this? Right? I'm like, it's basically the cloud, right? But I'm bringing it with me to where I'm going, right? And in the TSI, the guy at the airport's like, well, that's, should I double check that, right? I'm like, no,
here it is.
I'm like, no, I'm just kidding. It's a video game thing. It's like PlayStation, but better. And they'd be like, oh, okay, then you let you go, right? So, but on a more serious thing, when we talk cloud, a lot of times it's not just about having a service that's in another data center. It's a lot about ease of use, right? So things that I see myself and others really enjoy about cloud is you want something, you click a button, here it is, right? Here's your new service that you want to spin up, whether it's an object store, or some type of cluster, or whatever, and you can kind of just pick and choose whatever you want, and you click a button, and now you have it. And so people say, well, that's cool, that's what I want, right? I want ease of use. I want to know that things are built the same way, the right way every time, right? So the cloud automatically includes a lot of automation. So when you click a button on a cloud front page, it's not like it happens by magic, right? There's somebody that built the automation tools in the back end that are making all those things happen. So for us, we talk about bringing the cloud to the edge. A lot of that is based on being able to automate processes, automate things, have them come up quickly, especially in a disconnected environment. So I need something that's complicated normally to build. It could take days, weeks, or other to build out, but I need to be able to do it quickly. So I want that cloud-like capability. And it won't get easier because as we talk more about ML, machine learning at the edge and some of these other more complex things that people want to run at the edge, those services, the build out for those services doesn't get any simpler, right? So it just introduces more and more times where you can run into human.
Yeah, and to your point, Josh, about it doesn't get any simpler, I think that goes with the evolving battlefield and these environments being disconnected and distributed. Those are capabilities that they'll need for that end-to-end tactical modernization approach. And with that, I kind of want to factor everything in from the event, from what you guys just discussed about the showcase, your intentions going into the show, any conversations you guys had about what we're doing, and from the demos and how we're supporting the Army's way ahead. So I want to ask, what was each of your guys' biggest takeaways from the event?
Wow. The event is, I guess my biggest takeaway, well, a couple of them, it was more engineer focused than I had initially anticipated. I was just looking over the list of attendees, and it's a lot of, as Josh calls, quote unquote, nerds, right? But in the good kind, the Army kind. So a lot of different engineers, whether that's electronical engineer, computer scientists, test officers, lead engineers. So it wasn't necessarily program focused, but it was more of the guys working in the labs, doing the testing and development. But also, too, that kind of lend itself to, kind of the problem we're trying to get after is some of these folks are kind of disconnected from the end user and how things are deployed, right? They build it, they design it, they test it, they kind of ship it off. And I guess it's a larger Army problem, but there's a little disconnect between the programs and the development and the actual fielding of said items, right? You kind of pass it off, and then at the end of the day, if it breaks, there's an FSR there to support it. So I think my biggest takeaway, was things are changing from when I was with the programs a little bit. So kind of understanding that how things are done now, and that it's not a bad thing, but it's definitely something to think about going forward for us.
Absolutely. And what about you, Josh?
I think for me, in the past, we've generally done a lot of talking with automation with people that are normally building infrastructure, right? So at least, for me, when I'm sitting down with other engineers, there are people that are building infrastructure. And I think at this show, I had a lot of success and interest as well with, when I started with it, which is the cybersecurity folks. People that are coming up and saying, hey, what do you do? What do you got on the table? And I start going over it, and they go, I'm a cybersecurity person. And I go, perfect. You're just the person that I want to talk to. And here's why. I'm like seeing them kind of, like at first kind of gloss over and like, I don't know, can I just have the little pen on the desk? or Eric, am I going to have to listen to this? But usually within a few seconds, you can see him kind of refocusing, like, hey, this actually brings up a really good point. Why aren't we doing that? And on a few occasions, I think we're able to kind of share that automation journey story with cybersecurity folks and get them to really kind of start focusing and thinking about maybe that as part of their overall list of things that they do to help keep the infrastructure we have more secure. So that was kind of my big take from that.
Very interesting, guys. And what I'm gathering from your takeaways here is really that emphasis on education and problem solving aspects and, ultimately providing and sharing solutions to the challenges at hand. So, David and Joss, I just want to say thank you for giving us insight into this event and how we're supporting the Army's way ahead. And for our listeners, be sure to subscribe to our channel so you can stay updated with all of the On the Road Again discussions and keep up with all NTS events that we've been at and holding, with deep dives on how we're supporting to meet the needs of military, government, industry. Once again, David and Josh, thank you guys, and we look forward to having you on here again to hear about the next event you're supporting.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Jolie.